Smart B Sports Update Podcast is brought to you by Optimum CBD. For all your rest and recovery needs, CBD products are your best bet. Go to OptimumCBD.store to order now. Free delivery on all orders over $99. You must be over 18 to order. I use Optimum CBD products personally for my rest and recovery. I train 6 days a week in Jiu-Jitsu, as you've probably heard on the Smart B Sports Update Podcast. I teach, I train, I compete. And without Optimum CBD products, I wouldn't be able to do it. Optimum CBD for all your rest and recovery needs.
All I see is just constant, beyond ridiculous. There's just all abandonment of hope for all Dragons fans, because you just don't see any way out of the hole. Because they can suck the coach because he won't let his son go, or they can suck his son, or the coach can suck his son. But then what does it really matter anyway, because the rest of the team sucks too.
I'm guessing that we're on.
Yeah. Depressing way to start it. Because Gordon Tallis reckons that Shane Flanagan's going to be sacked unless he drops Carl. Now, that's not true. Just so we're aware. That's the news articles that came out were all, the headlines were Shane Flanagan to be sacked if he doesn't drop his son Kyle Flanagan, but in reality it was just Gordon Tallis saying it. Gordon Tallis has nothing to do with the Dragons, doesn't have inside information that the Dragons, in fact the Dragons and all Dragons fans and players and staff hate Gordon Tallis. So it was just a clickbait headline, but in reality, what do they even do? What does the club do about Shane Flanagan not dropping Kyle Flanagan? Even if they do drop Kyle Flanagan, what do they bring? Lachlan Ilias in, or some other dude? They've signed no one. It's the June 30 deadline is 13 days away. It seems like no one in the entire league is talking to Toby Sexton. That's a little bit weird. Zero media comes out about Sexton. And you would think that there's a bunch of clubs that would be interested in him. But they re-signed Jacob Little. That's the Dragons. They extended Little for 3 years. Who's actually been one of their best players. Shane Flanagan says Kyle Flanagan's been one of the best players, but actually Little has been one of the best players. Kyle Flanagan's been average like all of the Dragons. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I did do a column on this on our website yesterday now. The way that I see it is the bigger issue for the Dragons, more so than, will Kyle play this week or will Kyle play next week? I think the bigger issue is with Kyle Flanagan there playing under his dad, Shane Flanagan, as the coach, is this stopping Shane Flanagan from recruiting the players he needs to recruit? Like Toby Sexton, halfback in the team that's on top of the ladder at the moment, not attracting any interest from any club. So I would have thought a club that's struggling in the halves, like the Dragons, the first thing that Shane Flanagan should be doing is getting on the phone to Toby Sexton's agent and organising a meeting and making him an offer. But he's not doing that. Now, he's not doing that because his son is the halfback. This is the real issue for me, is that because his son's the halfback in the team, that's stopping Shane Flanagan from doing the recruitment he needs to do. Now, you mentioned the Dragons' recruitment just before. The only player they've signed for next year is Sharks 5'8", Daniel Atkinson. Now, Daniel Atkinson is the 18th man for the Sharks. He's the 18th man. Now, can I put a theory to you, which I put in the column yesterday? Has he signed a fringe player like Daniel Atkinson, who, as I just said, is Cronulla's 18th man, because he thinks Atkinson won't threaten Kyle Flanagan's spot in the team? Also, is he not having discussions with Toby Sexton at the moment because he's worried that if he signs Toby Sexton, that Toby Sexton would threaten his son's spot in the team?
I don't think there's that much thought that goes into it, to be honest.
Right, okay.
I just think, because even then you could have Toby Sexton and Kyle Flanagan, or who is the other guy? Atkinson and Kyle Flanagan. The rest of the Dragons halves aren't exactly the best in the world, like Larkin King, Tonya and Lachlan Ilias, and they're all basically 18th men as well. And Kyle Flanagan being 18th man at a lot of other teams. Some other teams, yes. In the current state of play with the halves across the league, probably not anymore. I was said at the beginning of the year that, I would think he wouldn't make 5/8 in most other teams in the league. But currently with a bunch of the teams, none of them have really good halves. I'd say the reason Atkinson is 18th man at Cronulla is because Nico Hines is their favourite son. And Braden Trindle is actually a pretty good 5/8. But when you drop to, not even a fringe first grader or like an 18th man guy and you sign him, is he going to come over and partner Kyle Flanagan in the halves over Lachlan Ilias or Larkin King Tonga? Is that the goal? Because I don't think anyone they sign, they're only going to, unless they sign two halves, neither of them threaten Kyle Flanagan. Because despite what everybody, including me, thinks, Kyle Flanagan is still the best half the Dragons have at this stage, because Lachlan Ilias isn't actually going that well in lower grades, right? So,
but I guess but that's the point then, isn't it? You just said that if they sign two halves, then it's a threat to Flanagan. Well, they've signed one, right? So they're not signing another one. So that's the issue. They've signed Atkinson, but they haven't signed Sexton. Yeah. And if they had signed Sexton, well, you'd maybe go with Atkinson and Sexton in the halves.
Maybe.
And so that's why he's not pursuing Sexton as well.
The thing with Sexton is, like I said, nobody seems to be pursuing him. It's the most bizarre situation in the world.
He's the halfback in the team that's on top of the ladder. They've won 11 of their first 13 games. He was their best player in that win over Souths on the weekend when they didn't have 4 Origin players. And he can't even get a meeting with any club. He can't even get a meeting with the Dragons, whose halves are terrible at the moment.
What are they called? The Eels were looking for... the Eels are looking for a half. They were pursuing... what's his name? Lachlan Galvin on a big money contract. So they're looking for a half and they have big money. Why aren't they pursuing Sexton? What's it called? The Roosters are pursuing DCE, but I don't know if that's
we'll get to that a bit later. That's on our rundown. That's a good
idea anymore. But, Manly looking for halves? Who have they signed in the halves?
Fogarty.
Yeah, well, they said that. No, the Raiders are looking for a half because they've lost Fogarty. Why aren't they sitting down with Toby Sexton? What is going on with Toby Sexton that nobody is looking at Toby Sexton? The Titans could use anything.
Yeah.
I think the Titans need 17 new players.
But that's the thing. I know he's asking for a lot of money, but hey, maybe he's worth the money. Maybe he's worth the money. I don't think that the big price tag should be a deterrent to clubs signing him at this stage.
I don't. Well, at this point, with the cost of all halves, he's really worth whatever he asks, We already talked about a lot. There's very few clubs in the competition where a half comes off contract. There's some players when they come off, like we were talking about last week, like Payne Haas. I think still think Broncos should just let Payne Haas go, right? There's 16 other clubs in the league that will take him. All the way from the Bulldogs at the top of the ladder all the way down, they would take him. There's very few clubs in the league that if any half came off contract that wouldn't take him, actually. Obviously Melbourne don't need a half. Penrith don't need a half, 5/8 or halfback.
But
Broncos don't need halves.
And this is where the Kyle Flanagan, Shane Flanagan scenario is obviously completely different to the Nathan Cleary, Ivan Cleary scenario. In that, if Nathan Cleary left Penrith, there are 16 other clubs who would want him.
Yeah, exactly.
If Kyle Flanagan left the Dragons, there are 0 other NRL clubs who would want him. Well, that's what I mean.
At this point, I think there are some clubs that will take him simply because there's such a... if you think about it, right now across the league in the halves, Kyle Flanagan is probably the 16th best half out of 34, or 17th best half out of... somewhere in that range, Because there's not that many halves setting the world on fire. And there's a whole bunch of overpriced ones like Dylan Brown, Lachlan Galvin. But it's just bizarre that no one's looking at Toby Sexton. And the Dragons have a massive issue not just in the halves, but across the park. And it's bizarre that Lachlan Ilias was dropped for his second club in a row. All the blame solely fell on Lachlan Ilias, and then straight afterwards. You know, the thing, if I had a penny for every time Lachlan Ilias was dropped by his club and they didn't improve, I'd have 2 pennies, which isn't a lot, but it's still it's still a pretty bad amount to be Lachlan Ilias, right?
Yeah. But you mentioned Lachlan Ilias. He got dropped after they lost 46-18 to the Roosters. So that's a 28-point loss. So he gets dropped after a 28-point loss. But yet the Dragons lost by 50 to the Dolphins, and Kyle Flanagan doesn't get dropped after they lose by 50. So a 28-point loss was enough for Lachlan Ilias to be dropped, but a 50-point loss was not enough for Kyle Flanagan to be dropped.
No.
So if that doesn't fuel, claims of favouritism from the coach towards his son, then nothing will.
To be honest, I think the Sharks' loss was worse than the 50-point loss. Because they were up 18-6, you know,
and then
lost.
Lost 30-18.
Like they just couldn't do anything in the second half except drop the ball a lot and not go forward. No, that's what the second half is. What is your? I don't know if you can like see completion rates for second halves and stuff like that, but like they just dropped the ball every time they had the ball.
Yeah, I mean. But this is the thing. The Roosters let Kyle Flanagan go after one season. Why? Because he wasn't up to it at NRL level. The Bulldogs let Kyle Flanagan go. Why? Because he wasn't up to it at NRL level. Kyle Flanagan left the Bulldogs at the end of 2023. Look how they've gone since he left. Last year they made the finals for the first time in 8 years, and this year they're on top of the ladder. They've done that well since he's left the club. And let me tell you, it's not a coincidence. I watched every game that he played for the Bulldogs, and it wasn't crash hot. Yeah. Let me tell you. So there's no coincidence there that the Bulldogs have shot up the ladder since he's left the club. You got 2 clubs there who know what they're doing. The Roosters have had a lot of success in recent times. The Bulldogs are on top of the ladder right now. So those 2 clubs know what's going on, and they both looked at him and gone, we don't want this guy.
Kyle Flanagan needs a fully dominant superstar half to partner with him to make him look good, and there aren't any. And
Toby Sexton.
Well, he's not a fully dominant superstar half that can make Kyle Flanagan look good. You know, like that's.
I think he could. If the way he's playing, he's in the team on top of the ladder.
He needs to partner with Nathan Cleary or Jerome Hughes. You know,
but I mean, they're never going to get them though, right?
So that's the thing, right? That's why I mean, like, the depression has set in for all Dragons fans because we see no way out of the hole that they've dug themselves. Not even just this year, but next year and the year after. And you know, every Dragons fan was like really down for being patient with Shane Flanagan, knowing full well that it took him a few years to get the Sharks even into the finals after signing on, and we all wanted like the Dragons to just accept it. But every single Dragons fan, media person, and everyone can see the issue there, and they just don't see anywhere in the future that it will be solved. So it's like, you know, yeah, they can drop Kyle Flanagan all they want. You know, they can sack Shane Flanagan. Will it solve anything? Maybe. If that's the only way to get rid of Kyle Flanagan, that's ridiculous. You know? And then surely Shane Flanagan will get another job. And is he going to take Kyle Flanagan with him? Like, any club that wants to hire Shane Flanagan, are they going to have to put in... And you can't sign your son into the contract? You know, how is that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I just look at it and go, well, Kyle Flanagan's under contract until the end of 2027. What are they just gonna allow this to go on for 2.5 years? You know, that's the thing. Toby said, I know most halves are unavailable, most halves are locked away, but Toby Sexton's available. I mean, he's an option. There's an option right there that I think would improve things for them. He's not attracting interest from any other clubs, so you know they may not have to pay the $1 million+ a year for him. They may be able to get him cheaper than that because he's not attracting the interest from other clubs. I just look at it and go, there's an and I'm not saying it'll solve all their problems, but it solves one problem. There's an obvious solution there, and I think they should be looking into it. Because if they were to do that, if they were to sign Sexton, they'd be in a better position than what they are now, in my opinion.
Well, in theory, it's just, like based on... Did you watch the game on... What day was it? Thursday?
Oh, yeah, I covered it. Yeah, I covered the game.
They just looked terrible. Like, they had a half an hour good stretch there where they put themselves in the lead. And there was even some talk about, like, the only reason they got in the lead was because of the sin bin. But the sin bin was in the 31st minute, and they just scored once during that time, Like, Sharks scored first, then Dragons scored 3 times, and then they came out in the second half, and it was just like, what the hell happened here? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, game of 2 halves kind of thing, or one of the halves is Kyle Flanagan. And like everyone, Shane Flanagan was at the Dragons when he was banned, actually. He was an assistant coach. I think I can't remember who the coach was there at the time because they've been through so many coaches. And all Dragons fans even then wanted him to take over, And so it's been probably like 10 years in the dream of the Dragons fans, and then he's finally in there, and we're stuck with the Kyle Flanagan, Shane Flanagan show that, like I said, you just don't see any way out of it. Like, we just don't see, like, not just this year, but next year. They came 11th last year, they're coming 12th this year. Their draw is not very... what's it called? Not going to be a happy time for the next few weeks. Like, they get the Eels this week, but then they got the Raiders at home, the Roosters, the Bulldogs, the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Sharks, the Warriors, Rabbitohs, Sea Eagles, Panthers. So in that whole group for the rest of the year, you see them maybe beating Parramatta, but they didn't last time. You see them maybe beating the Cowboys because they're all over the shop. You see them maybe beating the Rabbitohs, and you see them maybe beating the Sea Eagles because they're also all over the shop. The rest of it, it's like they're going down to Canberra to get smashed. The Roosters are coming to Jubilee to smash them. They're going over to Accor to get smashed. Then Raiders are coming up to Wollongong to smash them. They're going to have to play the Sharks again at Jubilee and get smashed. Then they're going to have to go all the way over to Auckland to get smashed. And in the final round, they got to play the Panthers at Wollongong. Even though the Panthers aren't going the best in the world, you still just can't see them beat them. And the thing is, the Dragons beat the Storm earlier this year.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
What is that?
Yeah, it's there's been a lot of shock results in this competition for sure, and that was probably the biggest shock result, or certainly one of the biggest shock results of the season. Look, the only thing I would say is, look, I get it that there are more problems than just that Shane Flanagan's picking his son because he's his son. I get that. I understand that. And I understand it's not all Shane Flanagan's fault, and he's inherited a basket case there. But the fact of the matter is, Kyle Flanagan's only being picked because he's Shane Flanagan's son. There's no doubt about that. Yes, there are other problems that need to be addressed. Yes, there are other contributing factors as to why they are where they are now. And as you said, it's probably not looking good, and there's no real cause for optimism for the next couple of years. But there is an obvious, there's a glaring issue there, and there are ways of addressing it.
I think, the thing is, right, everybody knows there's a whole bunch of problems. The most glaringly obvious problem is Kyle Flanagan getting some kind of favouritism. The fact that he's not fixing the glaringly obvious problem says to everyone he's not going to fix any of the other problems.
That's
like
right. That's right.
Staring at a car with the bonnet on fire, but going, dude, the back window's open.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Like, all right, I'll go close the back window. It doesn't stop the fact that your car's on fire.
Yeah, that's it.
That's Kyle Flanagan is the car fire, and looking at all the other stuff, like, the back tyre might be a little bit flat. He's not even going to bother fixing the flat tyre, it seems, because he doesn't care about even the car fire that's going on. It's just. We'll see what happens today when they name the
they got the bye this week.
Oh, yeah. Lucky them.
Yeah, and lucky
they do.
For Shane. I think there's two things that work in Shane Flanagan's favour. One, they got the bye this week, so everybody won't be sweating on the team list at 4:00. So that gives him a reprieve. The other thing that works in his favour is Origin's on tomorrow night, so the media will get distracted by that. But those are only temporary reprieves. The reality is if he keeps picking Kyle Flanagan and they keep losing, well, the media are going to keep bringing this up, and he's just going to have to live with that. That's the thing. If you're picking your son at halfback when he shouldn't be picked at halfback and the team's losing games, I'm sorry, but the media are going to highlight it, and he's got to live with that, and he's got to be held accountable for that.
Like there's things like he dropped Blake Laurie to 18th man, like that was a solution. So like is this?
But that's what I'd say. Some people have said, "Oh, well, they don't have many other options." Then you go, "Yeah, okay, so look for new recruits then," and they won't look for new recruits. Toby Sexton's an obvious option.
They actually do
they could look at.
They have a ready-made option. Just bring Lachlan Ilias back. Like that's the reality of it, right? Lachlan Ilias was dropped after whatever it was,
28-point loss,
and since then it's been gotten worse. And so we brought up Lycan King Tonga, and he can't be blamed because he's a fresh kid. Lachlan Ilias is last solution was Kyle Flanagan went to his dad and said maybe I should be halfback so Lycan doesn't have as much pressure on him. Well, no, all right. If you think that you don't want him to have as much pressure on him, let's put Lachlan Ilias in because Lachlan Ilias, is actually a halfback. Like that's this ready-made solution that's there right now that could solve something next week, like lipstick on a chimpanzee.
Would you? I'll be honest. I don't know a whole lot about Larkin. I haven't seen a whole lot of him. Would you have Ilias in the team over Larkin and play Ilias?
In theory,
in the halves?
The best halves right now that the Dragons have, in theory, are Lachlan Ilias at 7 and Kyle Flanagan at 6.
Okay, but he won't. The reason he's not going to drop Larkin is because then everyone will go, "Oh, well, so you dropped Ilias and Larkin."
Yeah, he's dug that hole for
himself. So now because of this, he can't drop Larkin because he knows that if he drops Larkin, everybody will be saying, "Oh, so you dropped Ilias and you dropped Larkin, but you won't drop your son."
Exactly.
So now he's pinned himself into a corner.
Dug himself that hole. And the real solution is like to drop Kyle Flanagan for a couple of weeks and then bring Kyle Flanagan back up in replace of Lycan King Tonga. Like that's the real solution. That's what he actually should do. But like I said, it doesn't matter because they're gonna get flogged over the next few weeks because they've got all these really difficult games, and so it doesn't matter what they do. And if he was willing to sacrifice Kyle Flanagan, then Dragons fans would see a reprieve for the future. They'd be okay with this year being down because we know that the Sharks took 7 years of Shane Flanagan coming over and rebuilding. They missed the finals, I think, the first 3 years he was there, that kind of thing. We all know that, and it's like, all right. But right now, all you see is he's just keeping Kyle Flanagan in, and Kyle Flanagan's there to 2027. And if Shane Flanagan's there, he's got one more year to run on his contract. Shane Flanagan's there next year, Kyle Flanagan's going to be the halfback no matter what as well. So next year, we're going to have the same kind of issues. I don't like the whole, it's not all Kyle Flanagan's fault, obviously.
No.
Because Clint Gutherson's given away more penalties than anyone in the entire world.
Sloan's been bad under the high balls, dropped a lot of high balls.
Four.
Yeah,
there was.
He had a lot of trouble under the high ball.
Guy wants to be a fullback and can't catch a ball.
Yeah. And that just kills you. Kills you.
Forwards are not going forward. That kind of thing. Damien Cook is slow, and Jacob Little should spend more time on the field. But it's the car is on fire, and we're not putting the fire out before we're looking at the.
That's the other thing. I'll say it again. I know you just said before that, in your opinion, you would have at full strength. You would have Lachlan Ilias and Kyle Flanagan in the halves for the Dragons. I know you've said that. But then the issue is the recruitment then. Yeah. If they're your best halves, well, where's the recruitment to get better halves than that? As I said, that's the bigger issue than whether Kyle plays this week or next week or the week after is why don't they have better options in the halves? Why haven't they tried to recruit better options in the halves? Is it because the coach's son is in the halves? I think it is.
Yeah, and so that's why I mean when I say we don't see any reprieve for next year. Because he's still there next year. Technically, Shane Flanagan's still there next year too. And so...
But this is the thing, and I know, Shane Flanagan's not going to get sacked before the absolute earliest he would be sacked would be at the end of this season. He's not going to get sacked any earlier than that. But the issue for him is looking more long term. The issue for Shane Flanagan is that if he protects his son by continuing to pick his son and not dropping his son, if that costs him his job, well, the new coach is not going to keep his son in the team. I'm just giving him the hot tip now. So, if it's his best option is to drop his son, he should do it, because in the long run, he's not going to save his son, because as soon as the new coach comes in, he's going to be looking for a new halfback.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now.
Absolutely. It'll be too late because Toby Sexton will have signed with someone else.
Well, he's gonna get snapped up by somebody.
Well,
he's not going to be. You don't guide a team to the top of the ladder 1 year and then not have a club the next year. He's going to get snapped up by somebody.
They only have until the end of this month, right? And then after that, they have to wait till the end of the year or something.
No, so the June 30 deadline is for mid-season player transfer. So if you want, like for example, Lachlan Galvin, if they wanted him this year, they needed to get the deal done before June 30, which they did, which is why he's there this year. The June 30 deadline is for mid-season transfers. But if they want Toby Sexton for next year, they can sign him at any time. They can sign him tomorrow. They can sign him in a month, 2 months. But I wouldn't be waiting that long if I were them. I'd be getting on the phone to him right now.
I don't understand why other clubs aren't chasing Toby Sexton. So many other clubs.
This is the thing. If he's not attracting much interest, well, then you'll get him for a cheaper price. And yes, of course, as you said before, they'd love to have Nathan Cleary. They'd love to have Jerome Hughes, but those players are not available to them. They can only recruit who's available. Toby Sexton's available.
Yeah.
So, I just don't know why. Well, I know why, but it's ridiculous that they're not on the phone to him right now trying to get a deal done for next year.
Super bizarre.
Because if they don't recruit him, well, what's going to change next year? Nothing's going to change. Nothing.
Yeah, they've still got Damien Cook.
What do they say? What do they say? If nothing changes, right? Yeah.
So, we'll be stuck with it, and that'll just suck. Over to the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched this game too, which was kind of a bizarre game, because I don't understand how the Rabbitohs lost, but they also never were on top.
Yeah, I'll go through a few things for you, right?
It's so bizarre.
The Rabbitohs won the penalty count 11-4. Bulldogs player Jake Turpin was sin-binned in the 62nd minute.
Yeah, for nothing.
The Bulldogs were missing Stephen Crichton, Matt Burton, Max King and Kurt Mann due to state of origin. The Rabbitohs were only missing Latrell Mitchell due to state of origin. So the Bulldogs are missing 4 origin players to 1, were on the receiving end of an 11-4 penalty count and had a player sin-bin. And the Rabbitohs still couldn't beat them. So that's just pathetic from the Rabbitohs that they weren't able to win the game with all of those circumstances running in their favour.
Yeah, so the score, 24-18, it's 4 tries apiece, but the Rabbitohs only kicked 1 conversion. Toby Sexton, who scored 12 of the Bulldogs' 30 points, kicked 3 for 4 and then a penalty goal, right? So it's 4 tries, 4 conversions, basically. It was so bizarre because the Rabbitohs looked like they should have been winning basically the whole match, but the Bulldogs just scored more points. It's one of those things where it's like the rugby league cliche. The Bulldogs were able to capitalise on their chances better. But actually they weren't, because they also only scored the same amount of tries. The Bulldogs actually weren't able to capitalise on their chances better.
I think
the Rabbitohs just had more chances, kind of thing.
I think the half-hour lightning delay really worked against the Bulldogs. It killed their momentum. I think if that hadn't have happened, I think they would have run away with it and it would have played out very differently. But as it was, these things happen occasionally. There was a lightning delay that stopped the game for half an hour, and then they came back and it was a different game, and they just had to find a way to win with all of those circumstances that I outlined before going against them. And they did find a way to win, and well done to them.
Well, apparently,
they had a lot going against them.
During that lightning delay, Wayne Bennett didn't even address the team, the Rabbitohs. He was so appalled by what he was watching. He didn't bother going down to the dressing room.
Yeah, the Rabbitohs are 14th now under Wayne Bennett. Not going too well, is he? Gee, the Dolphins are going well without him, aren't they? They're up in 6th spot now.
Super weird.
Amazing.
That's super weird as well, though.
Amazing. The Dolphins are flying now that Wayne Bennett's left.
We'll
and he's
see,
gone to South and they're 14th.
Don't worry, give the Dolphins another year. I'm sure they'll collapse.
I mean, to be fair, they have been... I think last year they were in the top 4 there for a period, the Dolphins, and then they just collapsed. But that was because Wayne Bennett decided to start coaching his new team a year early. I think that's why they collapsed. So we won't get too excited about the Dolphins. They haven't strung it together for a full season yet. Let's see if they can keep their spot in the top 8 for the remainder of the season.
The Rabbitohs, their big issue that they're highlighting is their massive amount of injuries and stuff like that. They blame that on their poor season. I think the weirdest thing about the Rabbitohs is the fact that they don't use Lewis Dodd at all.
And he's on $650,000 a year.
He's another half that could be signed. He's a really good half.
They could sign Lewis Dodd and Toby Sexton.
Yeah,
and they could get him cheap because Lewis Dodd's unwanted by his club. Toby Sexton's unwanted by his club. You could get 2 halves cheap who do a lot better than the ones who are there at the moment.
Lewis Dodd won the grand final in 2021 Super League, and also he won the 2023 World Club Challenge. He's a good half. In the 2023 World Club Challenges against Panthers, he's a really good half. And it's weird, like Wayne Bennett just fully doesn't want to use him at all. And, there's a half that could go to a lot of other clubs. And yeah, the Rabbitohs I don't know what's going on over at the Rabbitohs, man, but they are apparently they've had lots of injuries and so on and so forth. What's his name? Cody Walker still isn't back.
Cameron Murray has been missing for the whole year
Murray,
as well.
He's out for the whole year. But even then, there's just a bizarre...
Dodd, you're right. Dodd hasn't been given much of an opportunity at all. He's only played 3 games this season, 2 of them off the bench.
Yeah, off the bench, right.
Bennett's just not giving him a proper opportunity, and he should be, given where they are on the ladder, and given, as you mentioned, the injuries that they've had this year. Well, he should have been given more of an opportunity. What's the use in having someone on $650,000 in reserve grade? That's not good salary cap management at all.
Well, he's going to come out and, tear apart the team and change all the players and all that kind of stuff over the next 2 years or whatever. He's never going to get... Well, he has been sacked before. He's not going to get sacked from the Rabbitohs. But it's that game was just weird because by all rights, the Rabbitohs should have won. There's no reason why... I tipped the Bulldogs because I can't write the Bulldogs off at all this year. It's just impossible to write them off. They were kind of on top and they scored the same amount of tries and they just lost. And that half an hour rain delay thing is really funny because that's the second one in 10 years.
Yeah, the last time was that 2015 Anzac Day game.
Where the Roosters were dominating in that game. They were fully on top, smashing the Dragons.
So did that halt... it's 10 years ago. Did that halt the momentum in that game?
They halted the momentum and reversed it and the Dragons ended up winning.
Yeah, I think something
bizarre.
Something like that can really throw the whole game off and reverse the momentum. It's not... The Bulldogs had an 18-0 lead in that game. That's one thing you don't want to happen when you're up 18-0. Yeah. If you're up 18-0, you want the game to keep going. You want the momentum to keep running in your favour. You don't want a half-hour lightning delay when you've got an 18-0 lead.
Yeah. And Toby Sexton was man of the match, right?
I think so. Well, if he wasn't officially the man of the match, he was in the best 2 or 3 players in the match. He
scored 12 out of the 30 points. He's now there, he's kicking better than whoever's been kicking for them before. I think he's still got 1 or 2 try assists.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at his stats now.
1 or 2. It was 1 or 2 try assists.
Yeah, I'll just have a look now.
He scored a try.
Yeah, had a line break assist. Yeah, he was on song. Played very well for the Bulldogs.
Line break assist.
And it would be, and his goal kicking won them the game because, as you said, they scored the same number of tries. They scored 4 tries each. So he won them the game with his goal kicking.
So he was the difference. Yeah. And so now, what do they do when Matt Burton comes back? Who goes to the bench? Well, we know it's going to be Toby Sexton or Reid Marnie. We know Lachlan Galvin is now the Bulldogs' favourite son. And they're going to put Burton with Galvin in the halves. That's another coach whose origin has saved him a difficult media week. You know, Matt Burton being 18th man, which is a whole other fifth time.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. There's some things to say about that
just
later.
Ridiculous, but Matt Burton being named at 18 man for the Origin really saves Cam Serrato's bacon in the media this week, right? Gave him an easy choice.
And Serrato got asked by the media, you know, has the outside noise affected your halves? And his response was, no, I haven't, and I quote, no, I haven't seen it affect them. Like, everyone has pressure on them in every walk of life. Everyone has to deal with some sort of pressure. It's like, of course everyone has to deal with some sort of pressure, but normally if you're the halfback in the NRL team on top of the ladder, normally your position wouldn't be under threat. So I don't know why he's saying that, everybody in all walks of life have pressure. Oh, okay. Oh, so that's why you're going to knife the halfback who's guided you to the top of the ladder after 15 rounds this year.
I'm really curious to see. Like last week, the things came out like 10 minutes after we finished, but and it was as predicted. So Galvin and Sexton in the halves, Kyle Flanagan not dropped. But I'm really curious to see. The most curious thing will be next week. Because he can also save himself another week, right, by giving Matt Burton a rest. He had a hard Origin camp. So they have the bye after Origin. Then he's screwed. Then he's totally screwed. Because we are. It's annoying because we're going to have to wait a long time to see how this plays out.
Yeah, well, we're not going to know today with the team list because they got the bye, so we're going to have to wait another week.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like and then Reed Marnie as well is the other issue there. You know, Reed Marnie was asked about his little tanty he had in the dressing room afterwards, and he said it had nothing to do with that, and he trusts Gus.
And then that's the thing. Did you see the photos of Sexton and Marnie in the dressing rooms after? It was the previous game. It was the Parramatta game.
Yeah.
It was after the Parramatta game. I'll tell you what, they did not look happy. And Sexton did really well in a post-game interview on the field. Handled himself with class, made it, appear as though it wasn't affecting him. I'll tell you what, it was a different story in the change rooms afterwards.
That's the one that Reed Marnie says wasn't about any of that.
Well, does anyone really believe
Coincidentally, the two guys who were getting shafted by the Dogs look upset in the dressing room. Something else that's happened in both their lives that have affected them. And, we've already talked to Gus and we trust Gus. Reed Marnie is apparently being told... So he's off contract at the end of... This year?
I think it's next year. I think it's 2026.
They're off contract at the end of next year. And according to him, what he's been told is he won't be re-signed for then. He's free to negotiate with other clubs for then. And, he's not going to be let go early. That's what he's been told.
Yeah. Because
they're planning their salary cap that far in advance and stuff like that.
Yeah. And, look, I did do a column on this as well. You'd have to think the one who's the most under... we know Sexton's off contract this year. We know they're not going to re-sign him. We know Marnie's off contract at the end of next year. Probably not going to re-sign him. But if we look at the short term, what do they do right now? If we just look at that and put that to one side for a moment, you'd have to think Sexton is the one under the most pressure because all indications are that at some stage, it may not be next game, they're going to move Galvin to halfback. And then you go, well, all right, they did move Sexton to hooker in the last 20 minutes against Parramatta and they took Marnie off. But you can probably get away with that against a team that's towards the bottom of the ladder like Parramatta are. The real test comes where you just look at it and go, well, who would you rather have at hooker? Someone who's spent 8 years as an NRL hooker, who's played in a team that's made a grand final at hooker, or somebody who's never started at hooker in an NRL game in his life. I think you're going to go with the guy who's been an 8-year NRL hooker over the guy who's never started at hooker in the NRL in his life.
Yeah, I think it could go along the lines of something like Toby Sexton replaces Lachlan Galvin on the bench to start with. You know, this
And so then you'd have to, then I guess what they just do what they did and move Hayward to lock, man back to the bench, so you don't have, because you don't want to have, if that were to be the scenario, we don't know, if that were to be the scenario, you don't want to have Hayward and Sexton on the bench together. So you'd have to move Hayward to lock, as they did in that game, and move Kurt Mann back to the bench when he comes back from Origin.
This all smacks of like just slow.
Then you got an Origin player on the bench, but anyway,
slow process of pushing Toby Sexton out of the club.
That's the thing.
Appearing to have broken all of the rules of the Bulldogs of family connection.
Yeah,
you know, we're loyal to our players.
I think they're just Ciraldo's just waiting for the right time to do it, and he just can't do it at the moment because Sexton's playing too well. He's waiting for the moment where he can justifiably do it. And he knows he's got time on his side because there's a long way to go this season. We're only halfway through the season. So he knows he's got time up his sleeve, and he's just waiting for Sexton to slip up a little bit, and then the change will be made.
Yeah, and they've already basically made the 8 as well. So that's the other thing. They've
well, they got 11 wins on the they got 11 wins on the board after 13 games.
They can. So what was they had that? Where was it? It was they got smashed by the Broncos, right? Remember, if you remember.
Yeah, and the Dolphins. That was when they had all those players missing, though.
Dolphins doesn't count. I don't count that one. But they got smashed by the Broncos.
They did. So that's really their only slip up this season.
And then what's going to happen is if they have another one of them,
that's when they'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And look, they probably will, you know, because they got heavy State of Origin representation. I think there will be a week where there's a letdown and they just have a week where things don't go their way, like happened against the Broncos. I think that will happen again at some stage. And you're right. That's when the change will be made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sad for Toby Sexton.
It is. Yeah, you'd think that, again, if you're in the team that's on top of the ladder at halfback, you'd think your spot would be safe, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Even though there's pressure on everybody in all walks of life.
Well, now there's a big media outcry because Aaron Woods said what New South Wales has been saying about Billy Slater forever. Not just New South Wales either, but every non-Melbourne Storm fan since Billy Slater started. Aaron Woods called Billy Slater a grub, said he's a grub when he played. Again, thanks Captain Obvious. Everybody knew it, everybody's been saying, but it has caused a big outcry in the media that Aaron Woods went on his boring morning show.
Yeah. That's the first time that show you've actually were able to listen to it.
First time it was featured in the news.
It could be the worst show on radio, that one.
I would say, it probably is. It's up there.
Yeah.
3 worst.
Because the thing is, everyone bags Kyle and Jackie O, and I get why they do, but at least that's entertaining.
Yeah.
This show is not entertaining at all.
So they're featured in the news. Aaron Woods and Triple M Morning, whatever it's called, has been featured in the news because he called Billy Slater a grub. And, you know, I like Gordon Tallis' response. Not often I say I like Gordon Tallis' response, but his response is, this is a guy that's been sacked by 6 clubs. He played his last 6 years in reserve grade.
Yeah. And I got to say, that incident that Aaron Woods brought up where he said, Billy Slater kicked John Skandalis in the head.
Was that David Clemmer?
That was a separate incident, yeah. So he's got form, or he had form, Billy.
Yeah.
But that incident with John Skandalis, I looked it up. That happened in 2006.
Oh, my God.
Are we going back... Are we really going back 19 years to incidents that happened in 2006 when he was playing? Like, come on, not really relevant anymore, I wouldn't have thought.
Surely you go for the most famous one, the David Clemmer kick to the face.
Yeah, well, that was a lot more recent. That was a lot later than 2006.
Surely if you're going to use an example, that's the example you use.
That would have been about 2013 or something. A lot more recent than 06.
That's not even the best example to use for proof of why Billy Slater's a grub. They changed the rules about sliding in with the knee specifically because of Billy Slater. Because... you're not allowed to slide with the knees to prevent tries anymore because of Billy Slater. Because Billy Slater would do it, and it was a grubby, dangerous move. That's all you have to really bring up. But going back to 2006 and Kim kicking John Skandalis, like, come on, man. And
that's the thing. And Woods and Gordon Tallis has come out and given it back to Woods. But you know what? if you're going to do what Woods did and dish it out like that, well, all right, you got to be prepared to take what comes back. Exactly. If you're going to put that out there, then all right, Gordon Tallis is going to come back and whack you, and you got to accept that.
Yep.
That's just what's going to happen, and he's going to have to put up with it. And you know what? The other thing I would say is, I got to be honest. I think it's a bit of a cheap shot from Woods because he knows Slater can't respond to him publicly. The current Queensland coach is just not going to respond publicly to a quote like that. It's just not going to happen, right? And he knew that, Woods knew that. He knew that Slater wasn't going to hit him back. So in that regard, he's hitting a defenceless target. It would be different if Slater wasn't in an official role and Woods just decided to give him a spray, say they were just talking as they do on radio sometimes, and Woods just gave him a spray. And Slater just had a media role and then hit him back. That'd be different. But the current Queensland coach is never going to respond publicly to comments like that. And he knows that, but he's hit him anyway. I think it was a cheap shot from Woods.
I like to think about it like it's such an on-field type thing. Like the big forward went after the little fullback, and then the little fullback's forward's teammate stepped in. The guy stepped in as Gordon Tallis. Like, I love it.
And look, Aaron Woods deserves that.
Oh, yeah.
He deserves the hit back from
Like I
Tallis.
said, I don't often agree with Gordon Tallis, but man, it was funny.
Yeah, and he also said there were some other quotes that were good from Tallis. He said, and I quote, "He wasn't that brave when he was a player. He's braver on the mic." That's a good comeback, isn't it? He wouldn't have said that when he was playing, so that's my point. End quote. That's what Tallis said about Aaron Woods. On top of that, he got sacked from 6 clubs, so he knows what it feels like to get sacked.
If your nickname to the fans is Sharon Woods because you're so soft, it's not really a good idea to be the guy who's calling out other players. When he played,
that's the thing. That's the thing. And I know there are people who are going to watch this and go, "Oh, what would you know? You never played." All right, you and I didn't play, but we never set out to play. That's not what we're fans of the game who observe the game. We never set out to play the game. So I don't know why people keep saying that about us. Oh, you never played. We never set out to play. It's,
Aaron Woods can come to my gym and we can roll if he wants. I can spar with him.
That was a criticism of him, wasn't it? People said, well, this guy doesn't run hard enough.
Yeah, well, he would run backwards and then lay down in the ruck and give up for ages and do slow play the ball. And then when he was making tackles, he would always be laying in the ruck.
Yeah.
Like he'd come in late on tackles and then lay in the ruck so there'd only be one marker. That was the way he played. And that's why his nickname was Sharon Woods to the fans. Because he was soft.
A lot of people watched his game and went, this guy doesn't run anywhere near as hard as what he could.
It's just another Isaac Moses trick, because he was managed by Isaac Moses, right? Trick where he convinced the rest of the league that Aaron Woods was like the equivalent of the big four, when there was Brooks, Tedesco, Moses and Woods. And it was like they were the big four, and Woods was not actually of that caliber.
I think that was a big two, not a big four. Moses and Tedesco, not so much the other two.
I think it was like just another trick that Isaac Moses did. And out of those four, Woods is probably the least valuable. In that, there was a big trick where a whole bunch of clubs chased him. Whoever got him first, I can't even remember because it was so many.
Well, he only lasted half a season at the Bulldogs, and they got rid of him.
And then that was it. He went to 6 other clubs. It was 6 clubs, right?
I'm going to check.
He was at the Dragons for a while.
It was a lot of clubs. I'm just going to check now. Yeah, so Tigers, Bulldogs, Sharks, Dragons, Manly. 5 clubs. Yep.
5 clubs. And then he represented New South Wales 14 times, which is crazy. He played for Australia, played for the Prime Minister's team, he played for City, and he was bad in all of them. It was just an ultimate trick by Isaac Moses. Bizarre.
I'll tell you what, he was lucky to play 14 times for New South Wales and 17 times for Australia.
There were so many other forwards at that time.
You think about the number of players better than him who didn't play that many times for New South Wales and Australia.
It was the most bizarre thing. It was fully and I know Aaron Woods is everyone's friend in the media and on the field now, and that was kind of what it seemed like when he was playing Origin. He's just there because he's everyone's mate, not because he was... Seriously, go back and watch his games. It was highlighted. I can't remember who highlighted it, but one of his opposing coaches has highlighted it and how they target him in tackles. because what they would do is they would run at him, and after he'd tackle, he would lay around in the ruck and not get to marker. So you were always good to only have one marker if Aaron Woods was making a tackle. Cannot remember which coach it was who said it, but they highlighted that was his weakness. You know, get Aaron Woods to tackle you because you're guaranteed one marker, so you can get a quick run out of dummy half.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say though is Billy Slater is under serious pressure tomorrow night. He has to win.
He's gone.
He has to win this, come back and win this series to keep his job. If he loses this series, I think he's gone.
It's better for Smart B as a company and as a fantasy thing for Queensland to win, but I think they have no chance, and I think Billy Slater will be gone next year. They'll replace him with Cameron Smith.
Yeah, well, Kevin Walters was sacked after he lost 2 series in a row. Paul Green wasn't even that lucky. He got sacked after losing 1 series only.
Well, Paul Green,
Brad
thing where they always wanted Billy Slater in or something, and he wasn't available at the time, and then they put Paul Green in. Or there was like a whole weird conspiracy about it.
I think because Wayne Bennett coached them in 2020 to that series win, but that was only because it was done at the end of the year when it was COVID. I think when Wayne Bennett was club coaching again the next year and it returned to normal in 2021, they just sort of went, well, all right, well, now we need to find someone else to coach Queensland, and that was Paul Green. But then, Slater took over after Paul Green, obviously. But Brad Fittler was another one. 2 series in a row lost. He got sacked. The only exception, by coincidence, was Laurie Daly, who lost 3 series in a row before he was sacked the first time. And now he's back coaching New South Wales, of course. So...
Because who'd want that job? And on to New South Wales.
Yes.
So Mitchell Moses is now out for 6 weeks. The 18th man for New South Wales is Matt Burton, who is the 5/8 for the top team in the competition.
Yeah.
And, you know, instead of Matt Burton taking the 6th spot, they called Jerome Luai into camp. What's the point in naming the teams?
That's right. What's the point in having an extended squad if you're not going to use the players in the extended squad when one of the top liners gets ruled out?
That's the point of naming the team. Like, this is my squad.
That's the point of having an extended squad.
Isn't that's what it is? Like, that's what I thought. They should, honestly, they should have a squad they have to name. And then, because it's the same as like, Brian To'o was might not be able to play, so they called, I think, Montoya in. No, Carraz. They called Carraz into the squad, right? But he wasn't already in the team. So what's the point in naming the team? What's the point in naming? Why was Billy Slater forced to put numbers to his team? You know, he originally just named a squad, and then they forced him to put numbers to it. And put Azram at 18, it doesn't make any sense. They should have to name it. If they want to just make the team bigger, all right, you name 25 players. On Sunday, you go down to 19. And it would stop them from naming players that are injured.
And if they were going to do this, well, why wasn't Jerome Luai named 18th man originally in the first place? And I just point out from Matt Burton's point of view, it's bad enough that he had to miss his club game on Sunday to be 18th man when he's probably not going to take any part in the game anyway. That's bad enough. Throw on top of it that when an injury has happened to Mitchell Moses, who's in the same position as him at 5/8, he's been overlooked to replace Mitchell Moses for somebody from outside the squad. So that's a double whammy for Matt Burton. That's terrible treatment of Matt Burton.
5th time that Matt Burton will be 18th man. So 5th time he's been shafted.
And I bet, he plays no part in the game. So it's just a complete waste of time, that 18th man. Why do they really need this 18th man replacement? They're never used, ever. It's so rare that they're used. What's the point in it?
Those other stupid things about the concussions that they just cursory something to show that they're doing something about concussions.
Yeah.
They can have their 18th man, but there's no point in having the 18th man not be allowed to play. I mean, the Bulldogs won. What do they care in the end?
Yeah, but it's the principle.
Yeah, exactly. It's the principle. And if they had lost, and Matt Burton had been the change that could have make him win, it's just so dumb. And just, why do they name the team? Just make it, you have to name 25 players. How many players do the squads have, the NRL team? 22.
Yeah, but then it gets cut back.
So make it like that.
Yeah.
On the Monday, 1.5 weeks out, now that they name it 1.5 weeks out, you name your 22 players, right? And then on the Sunday or whatever, you reduce it to 20. And then 24 hours before, or whatever it is, the thing, they just reduce it to the 18. And honestly, it's just so unlikely that the 18th man will be used that they should be able to play for their club in the round before and then be 18th man. Because if they're going to play, it's only going to be for 10 or 15 minutes anyway. If they're allowed to call a player in out of the squad, they should have to call them into 18th man as well. You know, if Mitchell Moses goes down, then Matt Burton will automatically move to 6th and they have to bring in a new player. Not, we're just going to bring in a new player. Is Matt Burton the world's best 18th man or something? What does he bring to the squad at 18th man?
Yeah, here's a better idea. Have State of Origin at the end of the season so this nonsense doesn't keep happening every year.
It's so bad. You know, Joe, like at the beginning, I thought I was the only one who named Jerome Luai in our experts teams, I think. I thought Jerome...
in the end, you were right.
But yeah, I don't think Queensland's ever won in Perth, and each game has been a real big smashing as well. So we'll see. Well, it should be good in it tomorrow. Hopefully, New South Wales can win. But we'll see. I saw a thing about how, and Nathan. I really want Nathan Cleary to get that dominant origin that everyone always talks about. You know, that's what I really want.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's time for. If it's 2-0, don't play the third game, because why impact on the NRL season for a dead rubber? You know, that's another. That's another point that will need to be raised if New South Wales win and go 2-0 up. We need to be at a point now where we don't play that third game if it's a dead rubber, because I'm sick of State of Origin disrupting the NRL season any more than it needs to.
Well, they'll never do that.
No, of course they won't. Of course they won't. It'll never happen.
Yeah,
but it should be done at the end of the season, or have a 3-week break in the middle of the season, play the 3 games, and then resume the NRL season.
Women's State of Origin, which I think should be played before the men's State of Origin, so it's a double header every time instead of being played randomly. That's played before the season. The women's NRL. The women's NRL hasn't started yet, and they finished the State of Origin. So they do it for the women. Why not do it for the men?
Well, I thought it worked well the year where they had to do it in 2020, where they shut down the competition because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They were forced that year to play it at the end of the season. I think it would work well at the end of the season, State of Origin. October, there's not much other sport going on in October. They would have free reign in October. All eyes would be on State of Origin in October because nothing else is happening. The cricket hasn't started yet. The AFL's finished by that stage. So they would have October to themselves to do it in October, and it wouldn't disrupt the NRL season. And the weather would be warmer. So, you know, you wouldn't be going to State of Origin games in June wearing your puffer jacket going, I wish I was at home in front of the heater. You'd have warmer weather. There'd be that element to it as well. I think it would work really well in October. It did the year where they had to do it.
There's no reason why they don't. I don't understand why they don't. Who knows what the NRL does. Speaking of DCE, going to the Roosters, being dropped from State of Origin, everyone he had 2 ways he could have gone. He could have let it affect him and made him play better, or he could have let it affect him and made him play worse. Titans managed to get a win over the Manly on the weekend. Seagulls, DCE led Seagulls, and DCE kicked out on the full. Was all I watched of that game. And Cooper Cronk's giving him a hammering for it.
Yeah. Cronk pointed out in commentary a couple of kicks that were right off from Cherry Evans. One kick, was caught by the Titans in goal. The kick was so bad that the Manly players didn't have time to put pressure on the Titans player catching the ball. He's caught it in goal. They got a 7-tackle set. That was when Manly were on the attack trying to get back in the game, so Cherry Evans just completely let the Titans off the hook. There was another kick where he messed up a grubber kick, just kicked the ball dead, let them off the hook again. They got another 7-tackle set. So Daly Cherry Evans just not aiming up at the moment. At crucial times in games, hasn't been at his best this season.
Do you think maybe he just doesn't want to be at Manly? Or is it just that he's too old?
Well, look, and then we get to this situation with these reports that the Roosters are now going cold on him. Now, they were talking about it on 360 last night, and Braithen Astor was saying, well, I get it if it's a 1-year deal that they want him for, but not a 2-year deal. And I half agree with that. I agree that they shouldn't sign him for 2 years, but then what I would say to the 1-year deal is, well, what's the point? If you're only going to sign him for 1 year at his age, I know there's this idea that, he could mentor the young halves, but I don't think you can sign a player at that price tag just because they're going to mentor other players. I don't think that's not enough of a reason. I think if you're not going to... I think if your thinking is, well, we don't want him for 2 years, then, well, why bother with it at all when you got Sam Walker there?
Post-career contract. He comes in and becomes the halves coach in 2027. Sam Walker's out. I think they've gone a bit cold on Sam Walker because he was meant to be back this week and then broke his thumb in training, so he's out for another 4 weeks.
So are they worried about how he's going to come back from this long layoff?
Yeah, well, because he has had a history of injuries as well. That's the thing. Sam Walker was last year's $1 million man until he broke his leg in the finals. You know, he was going to be the next $1 million half, and then broke his leg in the finals. Adam Reynolds apparently knocked back contract to stay at the Broncos because of the promise of post-career, post-rugby league career, post-playing career at the Broncos. Roosters are still looking for a half because of the Sam Walker thing to partner Sandon Smith. I don't know if they were set to sign with DCE 6 weeks ago. It was basically a done deal. But now, apparently it's off.
Well, James Hooper on Fox League said the discussions between both parties have gone quiet.
Yeah, they were ready to sign him mid-year. You know, they were ready. If they freed up money, Dom Young's.
Well, they got plenty of money in their cap.
Yeah,
with all the players they let go at the end of last year as well.
Because remember they freed up Brandon Smith mid-season to get that $600,000 plus. They've now the Dom Young deal is finally done. He's gone to Newcastle, so they were looking to bring in DCE now.
Yeah, and the 1,250 games of experience they lost at the end of last year as well.
They've got all this money now in the cap for this year that they could sign someone in the next 13 days. And, you know, the info was it was going to be DCE, but now they've gone cold and it won't even be DCE. Maybe they'll take Sexton.
Well, I think the only way you would sign him for 1 year would be if you thought that you could win a premiership with him in that year. Yeah. Do you really think that him going there next year turns them into a premiership threat, given the way he's playing at the moment, given that next year he'll be a year older, he'll be 37 next year? I don't see it. No, I don't see their chances of winning the comp next year being improved by signing him. You know,
I thought the plan was to sign a team with DCE as the cherry on top. But he's not...
so to speak.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's the cherry on top now for them. So they'll be looking for someone else. And it might be Toby Sexton. Seriously, why aren't the Roosters looking at Toby Sexton?
Maybe they are.
Yeah. You never know with Uncle Nick. DCE's kind of screwed himself out of Manly as well. I'd say if he doesn't get that Roosters deal, it's the end of his career.
And after all that, where he knocked back... he knocked back a $750,000 a year deal. Maybe the smart option would have been to take that $750,000 deal now that we look at it. But he got greedy, he wanted the bigger money, and now his form's not matching the price tag. So
Dylan Brown money. But Anthony Seibold's the other coach that's on the outs as well. Because of the form of Manly and the form of DCE, you know, he couldn't retain DCE. And Manly's, what are they? 10th? 14th?
I'll just check that.
They're not going well.
No. Well, that loss to the Titans was, it was an upset defeat, that's for sure. Yeah, Manly are 11th on the ladder at the moment. This is the thing. So Seibold's under contract until 2027. But there's even talk that he won't coach any further than that. Even if he does, I don't even know if he's going to last that long.
No, that's
but this is the thing.
He's got. Was it him and Adam O'Brien have just a few weeks before they're gone for the year?
But this is the thing. There's even talk that Michael Ennis might take over from him after 2027, but he might not even make it to 2027. Yeah. And so there's talk that, if Michael Ennis wants to take over, Michael Ennis has sort of helped out at clubs, like being, this sort of this specialist coach, but he hasn't actually been a proper assistant coach yet. So would he need to do that apprenticeship of being a full-time assistant coach at a club for a couple of years before he's parachuted into a first-grade coaching job like that?
Current up-and-comers are like Matt King. There was someone else. I know Matt King is one of those ones, like that Jason Riles, Cameron Serrato, he's the new one. It was Cameron Serrato, then it was Jason Riles, now it's Matt King.
Yeah. There's always the next cab off the rank.
Garth Ennis was the one that was shafted by going to the time. All of them have got to look at it like that. Like Michael Ennis, he wants a job, right? He wants to be a head coach. You get put into a basket case like Manly, it's going to end your career. Nobody knows if, what was his name? Was it Garth Ennis?
Talking about Garth Brennan?
Brennan, yeah. He was the big one, and then he got shafted at the Titans because he went to the Titans, and that ruined his career. That's ruined his career.
That's the thing, and I think, Jason Riles waited a while for the right job to
he was meant to take over Melbourne this year, and then it was going to be next year.
Yeah, but waiting for Craig Bellamy, you're going to be waiting a while, so he just got sick of it,
I think Matt King's... But yeah...
That's the thing, it's a balance. It's a balancing act, isn't it? You want to wait for the right job, but you don't want to wait forever because forever might not come. Right?
I heard yesterday or the day before, Seibold and Adam O'Brien at Newcastle are 2 or 3 weeks away from getting the sack. A couple more bad losses in a row, and they'll be gone for the year.
Yeah, well, the Knights they blew that lead against the Roosters, didn't they? Very disappointing from them.
Yeah,
they've been really disappointing this year.
100%. They got Dylan Brown.
I feel like every week we're talking about how bad the Knights are going this year. Every week.
Yeah, because they shouldn't be going that bad, but they are. And, their fans are going to get on us and go, finals 4 times in 5 years.
Yeah. They make the finals and they don't do anything when they get there.
And finally in NRL, the Tigers CEO, who is the Tigers CEO now?
Shane Richardson.
Oh, yeah, it is too, yeah. He's made a suggestion. He could get fined for it. Mm-hmm. That referees are biased against the NRL struggling teams after that loss to the
Panthers.
When there was a couple of unfair penalties blown or whatever. I think that he's kind of right. Actually. I think that referees have inherent bias to teams they know are meant to lose, against teams they know are meant to lose. And so in a situation that they're unsure of, they'll always err on the side of caution and go with the better team. So in a situation that's it's a bit iffy whether it should be a penalty or a knock-on, ball strip or on, they'll blow on the side of the better team because it's more likely that the worst team has dropped the ball as opposed to it being raked or whatever. I think it's been around for years. Like that. There's the teams that... Then there's the outliers. Like the Roosters are forever. Doesn't matter if they change the coach, the players, or whatever. They're always one of the most ill-disciplined teams in the competition. But they just relied on their, in past years, really good defence to not worry about it. They just don't care. But yeah, there was a whole thing years and years ago about how one of the referees admitted they do have a list of players they target. And it was based on that. That was their justification. And I know Jason Riles was on it, actually, speaking of Jason Riles, where it was, if Jason Riles is involved, just blow against Jason Riles because it's more likely to be his fault. That's the thing. I think, Shane Richardson's probably right. I don't think it's malicious. I just think when you know that you have 2 teams and you can't always see exactly what happened, you just blow the whistle based on the team that is least likely to have caused it.
Yeah, well, just looking at some of the numbers, so the Tigers concede on average 5.8 penalties a game, so they rank tied fourth with 4 other teams in the NRL.
Yeah, who are the other 4?
The Broncos are the most penalised team in the game, 6.2 per game, closely followed by the Raiders and the Storm at 6 penalties a game, who both sit in the top 4. Look, he may have a bit of a... I know those stats may not back him up. Look, he may have a bit of a point, but whether he should have said it publicly or not is another matter. And you sort of think, is he trying to plant a seed in the referee's head by saying that? Where the referee goes, oh, gee, if I penalise the Tigers a lot, people are going to go, oh, Shane Richardson's right.
Of course he is.
So that's probably why he should be sanctioned.
He's been around forever. He shouldn't be sanctioned because if Gus Gould said it, then he wouldn't be sanctioned. And that's it from now on. That's how they should judge everything. If Gus Gould said it, would we sanction Gus Gould? No, then that for Shane Richardson shouldn't be sanctioned. But of course, he's been around forever. He's definitely saying it for that kind of reason. But like I said, I think he's kind of right. It's not that reason that the Tigers are going badly, That's not why.
And that's the other issue.
Because they're playing badly.
Yeah.
When Jerome Luai got sin binned the other day for holding down a couple of weeks ago, everyone agreed he should have been sin binned. That was the thing. That wasn't an unfair one. There was a Jerome Luai penalty last week, I think, that was highlighted. That didn't look like it should have been a penalty. But, it's you just said the top 3 penalised teams in the competition are all in the top 4 basically. Well, 2 of them are in the top 4, and one of them is the Broncos. So it's how you respond to it that is what makes your quality of a team. If the Tigers responded better, they would be a better team. That's it. That's the coach's job. Unfortunately for Benji Marshall, he only works 9 to 5, so he's not able to get it done.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You mentioned before who were the other teams.
Yeah.
The other teams equal with the Tigers. Roosters, Panthers, Titans.
So it would seem like if you're sitting around that 4th place, your team sucks. That's pretty much it. Although Panthers are now 9th. I think Roosters are in the 8 as well, so... Anyway.
Yeah, but interesting. Anyway, I think he should be sanctioned because he's trying to plant a seed.
Yeah. But like I said, would they have sanctioned Gus if Gus said it?
No.
Well, Gus,
because they're
Gus
terrified
said
of him.
Part of a media thingy, he didn't say it as a CEO.
Yeah. Well, that's another issue, right?
Yeah, well, I just think that's how they should judge all sanctions from now on. If Gus said it, would we sanction him? Yes. Then we sanction Shane Richardson. If Gus said it, should we sanction him? No, we're too scared. Then we shouldn't do it with Shane Richardson. But yeah, in reality, he should be sanctioned for saying it because that's part of the rules.
Woke up this morning after 2 hard training sessions. Oh my God, I have so much washing and boy does it sting! But luckily I have Gourami Cleaning Codes Gear Guard, Clear the Funk, proud sponsor of Smart Bee. I've tried all of the ones that are around and they're the ones that I suggest. They leave my clothes after training smelling like nothing. They don't do this thing where they smell like chemicals or flowers, and they don't advertise themselves as being a washing powder replacement. Instead, you add 1 cupful to your laundry and off you go. Head to GouramiCleaning.co and buy yours now. Gearguard is a proud sponsor of the Smart Bee Sports Update.
On to other sports. The World Test Championship is over. A championship that everybody finds it very difficult to follow. South Africa managed to beat Australia. I didn't watch any of it, but from what I've heard, it wasn't that good of a match. Surprisingly, the wicket didn't change on day 3. That was what I was told. That was really surprising. The day 3 is normally the change day in a test match, and it didn't change that much on day 3.
I think that was the issue. The sun was out, and usually in England, that World Test Championship final was played at Lords. Usually the idea in England is when the sun's out, it's easy to bat. When you've got cloud cover and it's overcast and the ball moves around, that's when it's more difficult to bat. And so, yeah, of course, South Africa got a good batting day on day 3, and that was where they chased the bulk of that total down. But, you can't be blaming these things on losing.
I absolutely can. It's just because the English Sun hates us.
Yeah, this is the thing. Australia lost it. I thought they lost it with too many poor performances with the bat. Usman Khawaja made a duck and 6. Marnus Labuschagne only 17 and 22 for the game. Cameron Green batting at 3 made 4 and a duck. Travis Head 11 and 9. Too many players there not getting runs. You only really had Steve Smith made 66 in the first innings. Bo Webster made 72 in the first innings. Alex Carey chipped in a bit. The keeper, 23 and 43 for a keeper. That's a pretty good return. But just too many of the top 6 there not getting scores in either innings. That's where I feel like Australia lost the game.
We talked about...
It wasn't because it was a sunny day. It was because Australia weren't batting well.
Because the English Sun is biased against Australia. That's the thing in the test matches, right? In a one-dayer or a 2020, you can have 8 people get out for ducks and then one person can save it. Maybe not that extreme in a one day, although Glenn Maxwell did it. Right, let's just remember, you can have one person save it. But you can't do that in a test match. Every batter's they've got to actually do their job. If they don't do their job, then you won't win. And them all getting out for like such low Scores. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. What the scores? Yeah. It just set the thing. But yeah, I said I didn't watch any of it. I just got told, I got smashed because the ball didn't change on day 3. You got smashed on day 3.
Well, it wasn't even on TV. You had to get Amazon. You had to get Amazon Prime. It wasn't on any TV station. So.
Well, I can't wait to see Gerhard, my South African friend, on the weekend when he's going to rub this into me. It was bad enough when Dricus du Plessis beat Sean Strickland, so he's South African beat Make America Great Again.
I'll tell you what, frustrating that this wasn't on television.
Yeah, well, that's frustrating. It's the match that nobody cared about, nobody knew about, nobody understood because it wasn't on television. I had a really long conversation, not long conversation, but good conversation with Western Sydney's Wanderers representative recently about how to grow a league in Australia. And the number one thing he said was, you got to be on free to air. That's the only way that sports can grow. Every sport, it needs to be on free to air. He was like, I don't care if they get rid of all the television shows. They just should put all sport on free to air. And just make free to air all sport all the time. Because that's the only way that sports can grow. And sports contribute a lot to the economy. Actually, a lot more, apparently, than a lot of the TV shows. So,
I'll tell you what, the way free to air is going, it looks like sport might be the only thing on it in a few years' time. Look at the shows that are being axed, like The Project and Q&A and Neighbours has been axed, has it?
Yeah, well, I think it was gone. It came back or something because it's so much they loved in England or whatever. But
I'll tell you what,
I'm glad The Project's gone.
Yeah, I don't think many people are crying about The Project and Q&A being axed.
Yeah, it's just gross.
But anyway, we want to see these games on TV. It's not good enough that it's on a subscription service like Amazon. It's got to be on.
It's the only way to
TV.
do it. This is one of the things, like the UFC is currently on ESPN, and their negotiation is coming up. So the way the UFC model is a free event every week, but you have to be subscribed to ESPN, and it used to be subscribed to, I can't even remember. In Australia, you get it on KO, and then every month is a pay-per-view. And they were doing negotiations with Netflix, but Netflix was like, we don't want to do pay-per-views. That's not how we roll. There's no pay-per-views here, bro. All of the subscribers get it, and that's not the model that makes combat sports. They make most of their money from the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And so so you can't act like that, though, is what I'm saying. Like with sports, like team sports, ongoing sports, season-based sports, cricket competitions, rugby league, stuff like that, it can't be on a subscription service with pay-per-views. That's how combat sports work, because you want to be able to watch, like, I know the Test Championship is like a bloody 2-year competition?
Yeah, it's 2 years, yeah.
You want to be able to watch all the stuff leading up to it, right? But if you have to jump between Amazon Prime and then it was on Paramount for a while or whatever, Channel 9, like blah, 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 you don't know where it is, then no one's going to watch it. So, yeah, just put it on free to air, man.
Yeah, and I think that series, I don't think it should just be a one-off test. I think it should be best of three as well. I don't. I think a one-off, it's not enough. I think it's the World Test Championship. I think you got to have a best of three for that too.
Test cricket is about best ofs as well. That's a good point. Like you never. Who wants to watch a single test match? Actually, that's the funny thing about test matches, right? They're 5 days, so you think, you know, one is good as an outsider in cricket. But if you're a cricket fan, you don't want to just watch one. You know, you want to see the part of the excitement of test matches. Part of the excitement of test matches is what adjustments do they make for the next one at the new venue.
Yeah, it's got to be best of three. And so that was the first major trophy that South Africa have won in cricket since the 1998 Champions Trophy. So they've ended a 27-year drought.
Because they're chokers. They can never win finals, right?
Yeah, well, it's so disappointing that Australia lost to them then. Really disappointing for Australian cricket to lose to South Africa in a final of that nature.
I feel like we've been talking about Australia's bad batting form for the past 2 years, though.
Yeah, well, it's, without Steve Smith and Bo Webster there, they would have been really struggling. They rely on Steve Smith a lot in English conditions. You remember that 2019 Ashes series he had, which was just unbelievable. Basically, retained the Ashes for Australia off his own back, basically. Without him in that series, they wouldn't have won a test.
Yeah.
They retained the Ashes just because of Steve Smith. And again, here, he's, him and Bo Webster, the only two to really stand up with the bat for Australia in that one-off test at Lords.
It's a shame. Oh, well, now we get to see again in another 2 years if we have Amazon Prime.
Yes.
And finally, unfortunately for Adam Scott, he was going really well. I was watching the feed. He was going really well, and then he died, basically.
Yeah, he dropped 9 shots in the last round. He didn't get that second major. He won. His only major was the 2013 US Masters. He was looking to, add a second one to that. But no go. Bombed out in the last round. Ended up finishing in a tie for 12th. Unheralded JJ Spawn won the US Open with an incredible late charge.
Yeah, when he started the 4th round, he was only 1 shot off the leader. And then he just collapsed.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
disappointing.
Golf, man. Have you ever played golf?
Real life golf?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Terrible at it. But it's like, that's golf. Like, you can just have so many bad, like a whole day of just badness, and it's unexplainable, unfixable.
It'd be one of the most frustrating sports to play in the world.
The whole thing with golf is like when you go play and you're not very good, you go and you're just terrible all the time, and you always just play Ambrose drop, which means you go to whoever hits the ball furthest, you take your ball to there, because if you're terrible, but then you'll go the whole day and then you'll just get one really nice shot and that'll bring you back for next time. And that's it also works the opposite way. You can be on fire for like 9 holes and just smashing it and getting on par and everything, and then for the next 9 you're just gone. And it's unexplainable, and there's no way to come back from it. Yeah. Like, it's just weird. That's golf. And as you get more and more frustrated, you get more and more frustrated. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's really hard for golfers, people who play golf, to get out of their own head. Because you're just by yourself, even though you're with people, and it's all quiet. You just got to all right, just do what I've been doing right for the past 20 years. Do it now. You've been doing it for the past 20 years. Oh, God, I screwed it up again. That's fully what it's like, man. So, poor Adam Scott. Yeah, he was almost there and then unfortunately bowed out. That's it for the week. Origin on Wednesday, and then we've still got another 3 weeks of silly season. Poor Matt Burton. Don't forget to go to OptimumCBD.store to buy all your CBD needs. Must be over 18 to order. Orders over $99 get free delivery. And make sure you use Gear Guard from Garami Cleaning Co. Just 1 capful in every wash. Gets rid of all the bacteria and stench that comes from sweat. Especially if you have kids or you do any sport. It works wonders. And in Smart Play Origin, we're back up for Smart Play Origin, the only fantasy Origin game. Once again, we're giving away 5 Origin jerseys to the top 5 scorers. Congratulations, everyone who won last time. Everyone has claimed them. But we're also announcing double points. We're doubling all Smart Coin prizes for State of Origin 2. So make sure you jump into a Smart Coins event. Only $10 for 100 coins now. Price is being reduced. And you can get in and possibly win yourself big cash prizes. We've been handing out a lot of money these days. So, yeah, good luck, State of Origin, New South Wales and State of Origin. And we're just trying to work around Mitchell Pearce right now. He's over in France, so we're going to do an online podcast with him for Origin soon. We just have to work out how it's going to work. Maybe put him on the TV over there that no one can see. And be like, hey, man. Yeah, have a good weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Have a good week. We'll catch you next week. Enjoy the Origin.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully my furniture for my backyard comes before then. And I can sit in the backyard with the bar and the beer taps and watch it. Otherwise, yeah. All right, thanks, everybody. Bye.